I'm John Belliston.
I'm Frank Shaw. You are listening to Relevant to Our Interests. I'm free! Free falling!
I wish you'd quit. I'm trying to figure something out.
I'm free! Free falling!
Seriously, man, you're worse than normal.
Don't you find it funny that we've apparently found another bottomless pit?
This one doesn't feel like the last one. I think this one there will be a bottom, but it's metaphorical. It's like it's a rabbit hole. I mean, look at the little doors on the sides. They're going off in different directions.
Metaphor what?
Metaphorical.
What's meta? And why would we need 4 cows? I mean, I have generally found that 2 cows and a car battery does the same thing. And do the crows eat the rabbit?
Metaphorical.
I guess I'm not understanding.
Clearly. It's like how it has something to do thematically with the show, but in a more abstract way than normal. It's like it's a metaphor for a simile, a reference to a reference.
You're just not making any sense today, are you, buddy? Do you think those blue chairs are edible? And do you think those little doors are for the rabbit in the crows? Because they certainly are too big for my wiener.
I'm going to cut off your legs and use you in ghastly experiments.
Yeah, you said that before and it hasn't happened yet. I'm free! Free falling!
I hate you so much.
I'm free!
Start the show.
Free falling!
Actually, I think it'd be really funny if at the beginning of the next skit, I had actually cut off your legs and was doing ghastly experiments on you.
That actually might work, because we are doing horror movies.
Yeah, it's been kind of fun, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah, so today we're talking about weird shit on YouTube, and one that I insisted we do, because it's kind of the one that pushed me down that really weird YouTube rabbit hole I've been coasting in for, I don't know, a while.
You think it would have been Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, or
yeah,
Salad
you think it would have
Fingers.
been Don't Hunt Me or Salad Fingers or any of the Adult Swim stuff there, but no. I mean, well, I think I never found the right one of the Adult Swim ones, and I never knew how to digging. And this is the first one that I actually I saw an explanation video for it. And so then, and they stopped, and the guy who was running it was Nightmind. It was the Nightmind one, and he stopped it and he said, "Now, if you haven't seen it, go watch it." And so I was like, "Okay, Nightmind, do."
You're like, I will listen to you because I want to. And
yes, because you are a faceless voice in the dark, and I always do what they tell me to do.
If it had been me that said that, you'd be like, "Fuck you, Frank. I'm going to keep watching this." I'm like, no, dude, you really need to go watch that. No, fuck you.
Yeah. No, actually, I went yeah, no, totally, yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. And then I just wouldn't. I'd say, yeah, no, it's absolutely the best. Yeah, it's a great idea. That's a wonderful idea, Frank. Yeah, no.
I'm going to do what I want.
Because that's how our relationships work.
Yeah.
So the one that I realized that we've been talking about for 2 minutes wholly without actually saying what it is called Daisy Brown.
Yes.
It's one that showed up, and I can say exactly when it showed up. It appeared on June 2017. That is exactly when it happened. That's not when it started showing up on YouTube, but that is when her Twitter account was created.
So, do you want to I watched it, but I haven't gotten deep into it like you have. Do you want to give a quick explanation of what it is?
Yeah, I'll give it a quick explanation. Yeah, well, and those kind of go together. Basically, it's a channel that is seemingly run by this girl named Daisy Brown, who's somewhere in her mid-teens, maybe mid to older teens.
I would have guessed early 20s.
maybe
I'd guess like 1920, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think that maybe the age of the actress. I think the character might be younger than that. But it's also hard. It's also hard. It's honestly hard to really tell because she got some problems. She has some issues. She
does. She's very naive. First off,
yeah. I'm actually going to read the little description from the YouTube channel real quick.
Okay,
I think this will help
that's
here.
a smart way to do
First
it.
one says, "Hi, my name is Daisy Brown, and wow, I just found out I can make my own YouTube account. I didn't know normal people could do that. I thought only celebrities with expensive cameras could. This is very exciting for me. This is going to be a fun hobby to tell you guys about my life. It's not very exciting, but I hope you guys like seeing the videos I make. I'm still trying to figure out how to upload videos, and I don't know how to edit. It's very confusing. Thank you for watching my videos. I hope you want to be friends with me." So it's this girl looking for friends on YouTube. The first video, however, is her talking about a monster that her father made.
Yes.
Named Alan. And you see Alan, and Alan is this ugly little puppet. It's also
very reminiscent of the baby from Eraserhead. I don't think you've seen it.
Yes, I've heard that. I still haven't actually seen Eraserhead because you never forced me to, like you said you were going to. Probably close to a decade ago.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I have access to it right now.
That's probably
check,
why.
But
but it's this really horrid little monster, and she talks about how he can only eat sugar and whatnot, and you find out that she is terrified of the daylight because her dad, who has disappeared, told her that that daytime is when all of the bad people are out.
Yes.
And that at the nighttime is when you go out and do things. And so that's when she goes and does her shopping and all that other stuff.
Yes.
And then most of it is just her kind of going through life, and Alan starts to grow as they try different things. Like instead of just the sugar pills, he's taking like drinks and
sugar water.
Eventually sugar water. And eventually he starts to grow, and he starts to grow, like he grows these little tiny roots that kind of go out. And then she has this one where she's like painting his nails and talking about all this here. Okay. The other thing is that she has been, going up to search the attic of her house to find things. And you kind of get the feeling that these are things that were like her mother's.
Yeah. That
her father had locked away, but she doesn't actually know that she has a mother. Like there's a point where you don't see, but you read a discussion between Daisy and her dad where she asks if she has a mother, and her dad just gets really angry, and then it cuts out.
Yeah.
But she's been, getting stuff from she's been searching the attic looking for stuff. She's looking for this notebook that will tell her what to do with Alan. Tell her how to help Alan and how to take care of him. And that's what she's desperately looking for.
Yeah.
And Alan starts to grow, and he starts to get hands, and he gets to the point that he can kind of move around a little bit, and he does things like pull out her hair.
Yes.
And it's not just like tugging there, it's like tugging bloody chunks of hair out of his head.
Yes.
And then she throws him in a closet for time out. Kind of things like that. For a long time, you've assumed that Alan is blind. Because that's what Daisy believes. That's what she says, that Alan is blind. Eventually, you learn that Alan is not. That he actually can see. He's been hiding it from Daisy. Well,
I was going to say, I honestly think that he was blind to start with. But once the changes,
it could very well be.
Once the changes started taking place, his rudimentary eyesight, which she indicated, which he could tell when it was dark and light, because the bright light seemed to hurt his eyes. It started to develop. But once he started getting the tendrils that turned into tentacles and that kind of stuff, the eyes themselves actually seemed to start developing as well. That's what I got from it.
That makes sense. So then, he starts drawing, and that's about the point that Daisy realizes that he can see.
Yeah.
And basically a lot of this is just him continuing to grow, Daisy continuing to kind of show up with more random, there's a lot of like random injuries that show up.
Yeah.
As they're going along, and it's like there's an entire episode or one of the videos that she does where she's clearly locked herself in her room, and I can't remember if it's the beginning or the end, but you can hear Alan banging on the door to try and get in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, so she keeps track of stuff. She's like, Alan's growing so fast that he like breaks open his neck, and she starts to like sew him up.
Yeah.
And it kind of continues on with these. And then you suddenly there's this huge growth spurt with Alan.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes from like that little like football potato thing to size of a large dog.
Yeah.
I'd say at that point.
Yeah.
He's at the size of a large dog, and he is verbally abusive, constantly insulting and making fun of Daisy, going out of his way to be emotionally sadistic. Oh, the other thing that is worth noting is I think it was in the drawing one when she realizes that he can draw, and that's when he just starts laughing at her.
Yeah.
And she has this kind of breakdown. Like,
is it
it's
second,
not?
You're talking about the second drawing one, aren't you?
Probably the second. Yeah, I think it's the second one where he draws the one that looks like her.
Yeah.
And then she starts, like, she gets really upset. She starts yelling, and then the camera, like, they move out of the field of the camera, but you hear what sounds pretty clearly to me like she's physically beating Alan.
Yeah.
Which does add a level of complexity to this whole thing here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, this is kind of dark. And only gets darker the deeper you go.
This is true. This is very true. Happy October, everybody.
Yay! Happy October!
Happy October.
One of the next videos after Alan has the big growth spurt, which, to be totally honest, the growth spurt one is the first one with the way that he talked and the way he moved and just some of the things that he said. That, like, unnerved me for, like, days after.
Yeah.
Like, there's just something about it that just, like, hit all of the right notes for me, and it just... It's stuck with me. Like, it was... Yeah. But there's one where Daisy finds a tape from her dad that says, Daisy, please listen. And in it talks a bit about Alan. It talks about a bunch of different things, and basically and his explanation for leaving is that I'm too dangerous to have there, so I'm fucking off, basically. But then he says, but I love you, Daisy, and that one is really sort of hard. Like, there are a number of times in this series, in this video series, where your heart just breaks for Daisy.
Yeah.
Like, and that moment at the end of the video called My Dad's Tape, where the camera keeps playing and it's her just replaying, like, it's like play, rewind, just listening to that small segment of the tape that is her dad saying, I love you, Daisy.
Yeah.
It is just heart-wrenching. Although, to be fair, a lot of this is really heart-wrenching. Like, it is... Yeah. Honestly, I'm sincerely surprised I like it as much as I do. That's the Strawberry Trilogy. The Strawberry Trilogy of videos, and we're almost to the end of the actual videos.
It's true.
Oddly enough. Basically what happens is that then, a little while after the tape, Daisy finds one, there's this whole thing where, like, she finds these groceries that are just sitting outside the house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's odd because I'm never entirely certain if she's just stealing people's groceries or if there's some, like, grocery delivery service that is still putting stuff out. It's one of those unanswered. It's one of those small unanswered questions, but it's something that I've always been curious about.
And it seems like either one seems likely.
Yeah, and it could really go either way. I mean, she doesn't
particularly what I do in my day job. So anyway,
it's true. It's true. Yeah, he does steal people's groceries for a living.
It's true. Shh, you're not supposed to talk about that.
Hey, you didn't say those Fight Club rules.
I thought it was implied.
But
anyway,
okay. She finds this cat that she names Strawberry. There's this nice little cat, and he's there for one. There's the one for this like episode where she's like, "Oh, hey, this is great. Is Strawberry there?" The next episode is one where she's just talking and she's angry. She's angry at Alan. She's angry at everything there, and basically Alan has like physically forced her out of the house, and she's just hanging out there, and she's sort of proving that she's not scared of cars. And then kind of at the end, she remembers, shit, Strawberry isn't here.
Yeah.
And she bolts off at the end. And then the next one is her standing over a grave called Strawberry is Gone.
Yeah, and it's like 10 seconds. Like the video's really short.
Yeah, it's like just a little 10-second video. The next bit, the next one comes out where there is a Q&A with Alan.
Yeah.
Where Alan is clearly like in a tub of some sort.
Yeah.
And basically he's not actually interested in answering any questions. He just wants to actively manipulate and fuck with Daisy where people can see. Like, he wants to get her angry and messed with in her, like, in front of her, air quotes, friends. Her online friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's around between the next two videos, because there's Q&A with Alan and then one called Hateful Thoughts. Mm-hmm. Between those on the Twitter, and she was actually pretty consistent on Twitter, though her grammar as the show progresses gets more and more degraded. Like by the end, it's actually really kind of hard to tell what exactly she's trying to say on her Twitter, because her spelling and her grammar is just completely gone to shit. But during that time, Alan takes over her account it was about a day. It was about a day or so, because I was actually there for that event and following it. Mm-hmm. And by the way, this whole thing was really interesting to like follow. It's one of the things that got me like to invest even a little bit in Twitter. But he basically he's on there. He's and you can tell that it's not her because the grammar is immaculate. But it's all sorts of strange. But then there's this one called Hateful Thoughts where it's very clear that Alan destroyed that tape of Daisy's dad.
Yeah.
And she loses her shit. A little bit.
Yes.
And then an episode called The Basement shows up. And throughout this, she's talked about the basement. And the basement, her dad has said that you just don't go down to the basement. You don't go to the basement. There's black mold. And black mold will give you Lynx disease. And those there, and so you don't go down there, and so she's terrified of going into the basement, even to the point that she actually like started to get mad at some of the people on Twitter, like stop asking about the basement. And I think even I think it might have been in the Hateful Thoughts video, but in part of her breakdown, she just like talks about how people just want to see Alan, and they just want to know. They keep asking me questions that I don't know, like what's in the basement, who is the author.
Yeah, she brings it up a couple times.
I think Hateful Thoughts is one of the ones where it's like the real there.
Yeah.
And basically she, it seems to the video seems to take place exactly at the point that, he's been fucking with her Twitter.
Yeah. And
then, she comes on and challenges him on it. And he's like, dude, I could fucking kill you. What are you talking about? And she's like, no, well then do it. They didn't do it, and then he's just like sort of like backs down and growls. It's like, clearly you need me for something. So so shut up, Alan. And then I don't remember what she says, but she pisses him off enough that he basically body chucks her down the stairs to the basement, and she busts the door open.
Yeah.
And you get her And then he says, "Welcome to hell, bitch," and then closes the door on her and basically locks her in the basement.
Yeah.
Which is where we find out that Alan wasn't the only monster that Daddy made.
Yes.
There's one called Lithop, who wears a paper mask because she's scared that she's so ugly.
Yes.
And then there's also a whole bunch of others who
you don't
have names.
Yeah, we're not really introduced other than you hear him talking a little bit in that episode.
Yeah, you hear him talking a little bit at the end of that episode. And they're referenced there, but on Twitter there's this little bit where she's sort of like feeling out Lithop's face and eye where it's kind of like swollen.
Yeah.
There, and so it's like that whole thing is how that goes. And then we actually reach the final video where Lithop and Daisy have decided to leave. They are going to run away from Alan.
Yes.
And that's what's going to happen. Alan catches Daisy, and let's say he disagrees that they should leave.
Yes. Go figure.
Yeah. Yeah, because, he needs them to, for some reason. And it's interesting because when he's attacking her, she just kind of accepts it for the most part.
Yeah.
But then he threatens Lithop, and Daisy loses her shit.
Yeah.
She attacks Alan, and somehow, probably by shoving him real hard against the wall, literally busts his skull open.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looked like to me. He hit the wall.
Yeah, the actual moment of the conflict and whatnot is sort of like it's the camera blacks out and phases out, but it's one where it's actually one of those tricks that you would use to hide so you don't have to do as much of the special effects stuff.
Yeah,
but it's handled so well and makes perfect sense in there that it actually, I think it works. And then the last is basically Daisy walking off with Lithop in a bag, and then she goes and sits down next to, I think it's a river.
I thought it was a lake, but it could have been a lake.
She sits.
What is it? Wisconsin, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's where she's based out of. She's in. It's Stevens Point, Wisconsin.
So I'm not familiar with the geography there. So I could be either one.
It's probably like, I mean, could go either way. She sits on some dirt next to a water, and then it just kind of fades out.
Yeah. Now,
and I am as bad as you are on the summary, so I can't really give you shit anymore.
There's a lot more going on in the background.
Yes.
Of this.
Technically speaking, I have only done, even though I've given you all of the story on the videos, I've only given you about half to a third of the actual story.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff on Twitter,
I would argue.
There's also a lot of stuff in the subtitles, and that's the thing. If you watch these videos, you got to watch them with subtitles.
Turn the subtitles on.
The closed caption on, because
they're not subtitles or closed captioning. Actually,
they are, but they aren't, because it does subtitle everything she says, but there's other stuff going on.
It fills every silence is filled with other things.
So there's the characters you talked about. Which basically is Daisy and Alan for the bulk of it. Strawberry,
Daisy, Alan, and then Strawberry briefly, and then Lithop also briefly, but I think she's more important because she's sort of the catalyst to the whole end.
Yeah. Like
having someone to care for gives Daisy the strength to break away from the situation.
Yeah. And then there's some implied characters as well that you get through the subtitles and a little bit through John's summary, but they really show up in the subtitles and in I'm guessing the tweets. I haven't looked at any of the tweets.
The tweets not so much. The tweets are all direct, like with the exception of the few times that Alan takes over. Yeah. It's all just Daisy. It's just Daisy, and then people interacting with her. I mean, it's interesting, but it's the big bit of praise that I immediately have to give this thing is for something that is not real. It is one of the most sincere things I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
Like, Daisy as a character feels so real that it's almost like it's almost mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Just how real a character she feels. Like, real, sincere, genuine, like...
But the implied characters that come through the subtitles primarily, there's Curtis, who's Daisy's dad.
There's Rose, who's Daisy's mom.
Yeah.
There's also the implication of a lady who's from Curtis's lab that he's kind of been neglecting. Yeah. But she shows up in the episode. She shows up in the episode titled "We're Back."
Yeah.
In the subtitles. But it's also pretty clear that she's trying to think, because there's something about her having her legs chopped off.
That showed up in the basement episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, she chops the legs off, and here's the thing, because I was reading up on a couple of different theory things on here, and when they talk about that unnamed character, that unnamed coworker, they mention pretty clear. Well, there's a moment when Daisy pretty clearly looks at Lithop and says, "Oh, you don't have any legs."
Yeah.
And then, and then she also talks about how, they were made with real human DNA.
Yeah.
Kind of clicks pretty well together, that one.
Yeah. So it's pretty obvious, at least from what's implied, that Daisy's dad was doing some pretty crazy, horrendous experiments.
Yeah. Either as like a means of bringing his wife back,
mm-hmm.
or as this sort of like nepotistic desire after his wife died. Because there's all this talk that he has about, like, there's in some of them where he's talking about how he wants to make Daisy proud.
Yeah.
It's like he wants to make Daisy proud of what I've done, and in fact he actually yells at her and may or may not be hitting her. Or no, wait, he doesn't generally hit her. He, like Alan, pulls her hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, great guy. But he talks about how much he loves her and all that. And then, but when she sees Alan, and I think he has this moment where he's like, it looks like a miscarriage with a pulse, I think is what he describes Alan as at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's rough. What you get about Daisy's mom, Rose, which it seems like all of the plant/flower based names, because a lithop is actually a type of flowering cactus.
And she actually makes that comment. Daisy does.
Yeah.
In the video.
Yeah, they actually had a lithop.
No, it was
one.
Yeah, it could have been actually Lithop that makes the comment. Now that I think about it, but it's addressed verbally by one of them.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, you were saying the flower based names.
They was talking about the flower based. This really was. They also had the flower based names.
Yeah.
Don't remember where exactly I was going with that. But like Daisy's mom actually seems like a really incredibly nice lady, and that. It was one of those situations where, like, all of Curtis's sort of goodness was kind of tied up in trying to be what Rose wanted him to be. As soon as Rose was gone, he turned into a goddamn monster.
Yeah. Somewhat quite literally, because I got the implication that he used part of himself to create Alan.
Yeah, I've gotten that too. I've also had sort of a little bit of a theory that she might actually not be fully human either anymore.
Yeah.
Mostly because of the whole, the face change thing, and then just all of all the weird stuff there. And the fact that there's just some things that she doesn't see. Like when she was in the basement and the notebook is right there in front of her and she doesn't actually take it. Or all the blue chairs that are just fucking everywhere in there.
So anyway, you want to touch on, speaking of blue chairs, this is a good time. The rabbit hole gets deeper and deeper. The more you dig into it, obviously I didn't.
Yeah.
You did. So...
Yeah, and I did, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to actually do this piece for the podcast.
Yeah,
is because you know, like if you were to just watch, say, the first episode, you'd go, "God, what an ugly puppet," and then you wouldn't watch any more.
Yeah,
but if you actually
and here's the thing: there's a few of those. There's actually a lot of those episodes that Alan doesn't appear in, and so if you were to just catch them randomly, you think, okay, this is just this quirky young woman doing some weird stuff on YouTube. And so it's one of those things where if you were just to come across this randomly, you wouldn't think anything of it. You just think, okay, this is just another YouTube creator doing some,
it's another 16-year-old's vanity project.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is, but it's just like in the cracks of that vanity project are where all of the weird and all of the weirdness happens. Once you step into one of those, like, it just keeps going and keeps branching outward. Like it's one where it's actually really masterfully done.
Yeah.
Like it's horror, not in like the scary, but like in that sort of keep you up at night, kind of unnerve you horror. And it's good horror.
Yeah.
But anyway, the blue chairs.
Yeah, the blue chairs.
One of the big bits of inspiration for Daisy Brown, really clearly, even down to Alan's name, there's a web series called Alan Tutorial. And that one is done by Alan Resnick, who also did things like the Adult Swim show, the Adult Swim sort of like, those ones they do at the 4 a.m. that are just surrealist nightmares.
Yeah.
And just wonderful, and I love them, like the Too Many Cooks people.
Yeah.
He did the Live Forever As You Are as one of them, and he did unedited footage of a bear is another one. But he also had what kind of his claim to fame. He's also a part of the Wham City Comedy troupe.
Yeah.
Alan Tutorial basically follows this man who's clearly has some mental disabilities.
Yes.
As he does increasingly insane tutorials, where they just don't make any sense. And then eventually it's also pretty clear that he gets kicked out by his brother who he's living with. And then he's like on the run. He's just like on the run in the woods, and he's still doing these like random uploads with the tutorials. And he gets picked up by this weird group who like lock him in a room to do tutorials all the time. And eventually he just like, eventually he ends up in this thing that's all coated in black paint, and it's like this weird hellscape, and he breaks out. Like it's one where it's kind of funny, and then it's sort of, well, what's going on? And then it's, wait, really what's going on? This is worrying me. And then, oh, okay, maybe things are better. Then no, wait, everything's worse. What the shit? Then that's the, just the general gist of the show. But one of the things in the show that has become very true to the kind of Alan Resnick style and very much a clear homage is when you have a blue chair. Because the blue chair was one of these really important things. Because in Alan Tutorial, it represented the stuff like his happiness and all things there, and then red represented everything that he hated and disliked, and there's this importance of color. But it's one of those things that was very clearly like that's there. And in this show, you have a whole bunch of these blue chairs that are not commented on, kind of ignored, even when they're like in prominent places. And it's sort of this clear homage to those there. And that's the kind of like weird logic that we're working with, is kind of, it's supposed to be this instant visual cue, like we're dealing in that sort of Alan Resnick kind of weird, quirky reality.
Here's a thought, and I don't know, because I'm not familiar with the Alan tutorials at all, so I don't even know if this is a possibility. Do you think that he was involved in this in any way?
I have seen some theories that the actress playing Daisy is actually
Okay.
Alan's girlfriend. But there's almost nothing to back it up.
There's some other strong theories about it that you had noted.
Yeah. There were a few more, but I think there's one that's big and important, and the rest, honestly, I think it's better to leave two people to dig out, because this is one where even if I guide it through you, like, because I don't think I could explain why this grabbed me as hard as it did,
and that makes
until
sense.
after you had seen it. Like, until after I'd forced you to watch it. Yeah, and until after I'd forced you, Frank, to watch it, I don't think you would have understood why I wanted to do this. I mean, admittedly, you don't understand half of probably a third of what I do. Anyway, so
it's a fair statement.
But this in particular.
But the ones that are really important.
Oh yeah. The big thing with this one is there is a lot in this about Daisy's sexuality, but it's all sort of
it's
coded.
not overt. It's not.
It's not overt. And they aren't even like dog whistled. Like there are ones where it's really easy to kind of miss. Well, one of them's a little more direct if you're watching the subtitles, but for the most part, there's three important pieces of evidence. And I'll go from the least to most clear. The first one is that there's this fairy tale that Daisy tells Alan in one of the subtitles.
Yeah.
Where it's about the sun and the moon. They're in love, but they can't be with each other. And they're like, but it's clear that they're both women. They're in love and they can't be together. And so they throw light as messages between each other in order to communicate. That's the one that's the least one. The second one is that one of the questions that she asks her father, it's not the one that pisses him off, but it's the one that leads him to being pissed off. Is she puts a question and she has a question box, which just that's one of the points where it's just like, what the fuck, dude? Like, you are so messed up.
Here's the thing, like, I actually like the idea of the question box, but not in the way he used it.
Yeah, no, like it's really the way he uses it there, because he uses it as, But the idea of the little question box of being able to put questions that you like, I think in something like a classroom where if you wanted to ask a question anonymously, I think that would be fine. That would be fine, and that would work really well. But when it's just the two of you, that seems weird to me.
It's very clear he's using it to sort of control the information she gets.
Yeah, and it's also very clear from the way he acts there that there are wrong questions, and they make you stupid. The amount of Alan and Curtis are basically the same dude.
Yeah, that is why they're horrible people.
So much. Yes. But her question says, like, could I marry a girl? Is the question. And then he's like, Daisy, why do you have to ask these such stupid questions? And no, of course not, is what he says. And there's this whole thing of, like, Curtis is also, I forgot to mention, but he's weirdly religious. Like, really, really religious, but, like, in some really weird, creepy ways.
That's not something I picked up on, but
yeah.
I also, there's things that I kind of missed. I fully admit that now. Like
I said, like, I've been sort of obsessing about this one for the better part of a year. Like I said, it really, like, it just kind of struck me. Like, it's just, and it may actually be if you want to, it may be worth it to actually, like, kind of, like, go through these things, because it's good horror, and it's, like, a really compelling story, but it's just one that they're not handing it to you. You kind of got to dig it out a bit. But then the last thing is that Lithop gives her this bracelet, gives her a friendship bracelet, which is one of the things that she tried to do in this sort of, like, semi-tutorial video earlier on, and she just completely botched it, and it was this huge thing that really, frustrated her, and it was in that episode that she locked herself in her room. But Lithop gives her a friendship bracelet, and the friendship bracelet is, like, the exact color scheme and design of the lesbian rainbow flag for the LGBT community.
Yeah.
Which, that's the point where it's like, that's a little on the nose. It's a little clear there. Particularly when you throw out the Alan tutorial blue chairs, where it's like, oh, color is of significance in this. Ta-da! Lesbian jewelry.
Anything else you want to touch on before we move into our final thoughts?
I think we got to move into the final thoughts. I have a theory for the future.
Do you want to shoot that out, or do you want to wait until your final thoughts?
Well, no, I'll shoot it out now. Like, there's a part of me, and I would be fine if I was wrong, but due to the number of unanswered questions at the end, and there are more than a few unanswered questions at the end of this, it says it's the final video, but I don't think it's the final video.
Yeah.
I think there's possibly more coming.
Well, you're hopeful that,
or at least more. There's more to this story. And it's not just hopeful. Like, I think there's too many pieces missing. Where it's like on that first cathartic level, hey, I'm happy with this ending. But on any kind of intellectual level, I'm like, but there's all this shit. What about?
Yeah. Well, you may be right. There's definitely room for other. There's definitely room for this to be expanded.
I mean, even just like another couple of episodes to bring up. Like, I think the two big ones is what the fuck, Dad, and the monsters in the basement, and then like Dad's notebook. Like, why didn't you grab the notebook? We need you. Come on, girl.
All right, we'll do our final thoughts, and then we'll recommend a few other YouTube channels that are worth watching. I'll go first because I think yours is a little bit more.
I think actually I'll go first because I think most of my final thoughts have been my thoughts throughout this whole thing, and I think because you since it's more fresh in your mind, and it's not, and you're not as invested in it. Your thoughts should have more weight because mine at this point can't fully be trusted. That's fair.
Go ahead.
Like this is a really excellent series. The acting for both Alan and Daisy and even Lithop is really kind of top notch. And it presents this sort of weird world, this horrible, terrifying world. But there's so much hope and sincerity in the character of Daisy that it just like you what pulled me in was, hey, there's a little monster Muppet thing on here. And what kept me watching was the sincerity of Daisy and how sweet, how naive, how much you just ended up liking her really quickly. And you wanted good things to happen to her, or at least you wanted the bad things to stop happening to her.
Yeah.
And like any series that can get me that emotionally invested in its characters is probably worth you could probably finish this with how short the videos are. You could probably finish this in a couple hours.
There's almost 3 hours of material there.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like two short movies or one Lord of the Rings.
So yeah,
but yeah, it's good.
I am not as invested. First of all, you hit the point on the nose as far as the acting and stuff goes. It's very easy to believe that Daisy is who she is. Now, obviously, she's not. This is these are actors doing this. I am not as invested, and for me, it took a lot of effort to keep driving on. But that's because I think it'd have been an easier time had I been watching these as they were coming out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is a difficult binge.
Yeah. So for me, I'm not nearly as invested in this as I think. Had I read it as a story, as like a novella, I'd have been very engrossed, because there is a good story here, and you sort of have to, pick it out, especially with the closed captions, having those on. It's imperative that if you watch this, you have the closed captioning on, because you will miss a lot of the background. You'll miss a lot of character development.
Even some of the mysteries.
And so you will be baffled. If you watch it, you will be baffled without the closed captioning stuff on. This is very much a concerted effort. As you said, it's not quite an AR experience, but it's close. As it was going on, it was obviously close. If you're interested in this at all, I think it's worth checking out. I think so. That is my thought.
What I would suggest, actually, particularly given what Frank just said, I would suggest doing it in bursts of like maybe between like 1 and 4 episodes or so, and then give yourself a couple of days or however long, and then do the next burst, and then do the next burst ones. That's like I would be curious at some point. When and if you ever have the time, or you just want to give it a go, to see what you think. If you're actually like bursting it and giving yourself time to think about what you saw between each one,
and see,
like think about it and explore it, I think it'd be a completely different experience for you. Even already knowing what's happening.
And that's the thing is, I kind of binged this in the last like 2.5 days, just to prep for this episode, and so I watched a lot of it at a time. I'd watched like 8 or 9 episodes, 10 episodes. I will say this, for me, the longer episodes generally tended to drag a little bit. The shorter episodes, the ones that were between 3 and 6 minutes long, were a lot easier to get through. Of course, you can say, well, if you've got a 15-minute episode, of course you're going to have a harder time getting through one 15-minute episode as opposed to, one 6-minute episode. But at the same time, I had an easy time watching 7 or 8 of those shorter episodes in a row.
See, so like I said, like I think I'd almost challenge you at some point, obviously not now, but at some point to give another go through, but do it in bursts, and then when you hit one of the longer episodes, like have that be, that's your whole, like that is your thing for the burst. Particularly if I'm right and it comes back, that's what I think will, and that way we can actually do that together and talk about each episode as we go, which could be kind of fun.
So with that, you've already recommended the Alan tutorial. You've got a couple other channels that you really like that are sort of horror oriented. We won't go into detail, just kind of a title and a basic blurb on them.
The Volgan, he does dramatic readings of the SCP articles from the SCP universe, and they're fun. And he's got a great voice. He also does an amazing American accent, because you hear him talk, and he's clearly got a pretty, I think it's either Australian or New Zealand, but he's got a pretty thick accent, and he does real solid work. Were you going to do the actual Down the Rabbit Hole guy?
Actually, I was going to mention him because I do watch his stuff a little bit.
Okay. No, the other one I'm going to suggest that I haven't actually watched a lot of yet because it kind of freaks me out is one called Hi, I'm Mary Mary, and it's about this girl who's trapped in a house.
Oh. That's
really weird.
Very fun.
They're like resets and is full of demons in the nighttime.
Fun. That's fun. There, I have 3. Two of them are Well, they're all actually fairly different. First is Down the Rabbit Hole, which John just mentioned. He does sort of background and analysis of weird pop culture and creepypasta type stuff. Not everything he does is horror related, but there's a lot of it that sort of is, and sort of weird fringe stuff. He's a lot of fun to watch because he kind of gives you the whole background on it, what happened, what is alleged to have happened, and what's going on now. He basically goes through the history of the things. They're a pretty fun little watches, and they're anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes long, some of the longer ones. The next one, Ryan Hollinger, he actually just does analysis of horror films primarily. He does touch on other genres once in a while, but his stuff is really fun and entertaining. He gets into the philosophy and the social commentary of horror, but he also talks about the filmmaking aspects as well, which is really fun. The last guy, he's just fun to watch. And that's Brandon Tenold, who does sort of camp reviews, almost mystery science theater 3000, but not quite. Reviews of exploitation horror films and Godzilla movies and action films. And he's quite a lot of fun. I just discovered him. He's one of my recent discoveries. Anything else before we close up shop this fine day?
No, I'm good.
Well, that's our show. So, what you got there, man? Did you find the door?
Donnie's my little buddy. You are.
You know we're still falling, right? And I think you might have been right about this place having a dog.
Who's my favorite little guys? Oh, you are.
You do realize that those things are like made of plants and people by an abusive psychopath in his own horror basement.
But don't listen to the crazy man. He's just jealous because he doesn't see that we're about to crash into a door made of human skin and bones.
Wait, what?
Me and my little buddies will see you next time. If any of us survive. Yes, you are. You're so horrible. I will protect you with my body. Wonder Woman!
Relevant to Our Interests is written and produced by Frank Shaw and John Belliston. Graphic design by Nathan Newell. Editing by Frank Shaw. To contact us, email us at relevant2ourinterests@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook at Relevant to Our Interests. Tweet at R2Interests, and listen to us on iTunes, Google Play, or SoundCloud.